Hello and welcome. I'm Craig Harrington, and the topic of today's discussion is protectionism. Almost all governments rail against what they call protectionism. Yet almost all governments perform some sort of protectionist agenda in some way. There are 150 countries around the world which have implemented some form of the value-added tax, including all of the productive centers of continental Europe. England is attempting to ban all foreign and guest workers from entering its workforce during this time of economic upheaval. Japan and China give out massive government subsidies to homegrown industries and try, whenever possible, to blockade foreign goods from entering their market if that good could otherwise be made domestically. Almost every country gives out some sort of agricultural subsidy to its farming industry, and almost every country has some sort of industrial champion which is directly promoted by the government. Almost every country has implemented some form of economic nationalism or protectionism. Yet they almost unilaterally opposed a tiny provision of the overall Economic Stimulus Act, which is currently going through our Congress. The Buy American Clause, the capacity for our federal government to purchase goods from American producers, has been vehemently opposed from Canada to Japan to India to Russia to the European Union. All of these countries are opposed to the idea that a few $100 million would be spent by our government on our soil for our benefit. There's absolutely no reason that any government should ever buy anything that's foreign made if that thing could be made domestically. It makes no sense that a country with our resource base and our technological ability would have to purchase anything from a foreign company. There is a misconception surrounding protectionism. Protectionism is often associated with the Great Depression, and the Great Depression, for some reason, is often associated with the protectionist agenda of the Smoot-Hawley tariff in the 1930s. The Smoot-Hawley tariff did not cause the Great Depression. The Depression was caused by many things. The United States was living increasingly in debt. It was increasingly buying things from overseas that could have been produced here. It was watching its manufacturing base dwindle. It was watching its American consumers live increasingly in debt. They were living beyond their means, leveraging their lives on home prices and stock values that were skyrocketing abnormally, well beyond the actual market value. There were a lot of things which destabilized the worldwide economy during the Great Depression, and the Smoot-Hawley tariff actually worked to stabilize American domestic policy. The Smoot-Hawley tariff put a tariff on over 20,000 imported goods, and in a response, many other countries increased their own tariff barriers. What we saw during the 1930s was a general decrease in production and a decrease in international trade. But after the 1930s came the industrial boom of the Second World War and the 1940s, and that boom would have been impossible without the Smoot-Hawley tariff. The Smoot-Hawley tariff effectively protected the United States from cheap foreign labor and foreign goods during its time of economic upheaval. Instead of watching jobs and production move overseas to cheaper shores, we watched our production centralize and nationalize. America began to become an industrial titan once again. And when we emerged from the Great Depression, which would have taken a decade to naturally cycle through anyway, we emerged as a much stronger, much more powerful industrial titan than we had ever been before. The situation now is much more difficult. America went into the Depression with some productive capacity. We go into this new economic recession or depression with almost no productive capacity. But we could still use protectionist measures to rebuild what has been lost over the last 30 years. We rode a wave of the Smoot-Hawley protectionism into the 1970s, but since then, economic liberalization and free trade have reversed almost all of the progress that protectionism brought. We need to reinstitute some sort of protection for our economy. We need to reinstitute economic nationalism and bring back the American manufacturing and industrial base, which we've lost to China, Japan, Southeast Asia, and Mexico over the last decades. When we emerge from this recession, we will be the better for it. On behalf of concerned citizens, I'm Craig Harrington with EconomyInCrisis.org News.